It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 16th edition of the School of Tomorrow events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The non-profit SOT events was launched by Beacon House in 2000 to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I would like to thank Google for Education and their partner Tech Valley, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023, and Titanium sponsor UBL. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Allied Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, and Interwood. We also thank our SOT sponsors, including Paramount Books and Nestle Life, who have contributed in this year's event. My name is Sadia Chand, and I am branch head at Beacon House F74. Please take a moment to note these key points. Please ensure your cell phones are silent. In case of emergency, the exit point is at the back. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtag Guardians of the Future and SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes for Q&A. Now I would like to introduce the moderator for this session, Ms. Isha Zaib. She is currently working as the Green Innovation Consultant for Accelerate Prosperity. She's a seasoned professional dedicated to encouraging innovation and sustainability in the startup ecosystem of Pakistan. Previously, as a senior community manager at National Incubation Center, Ms. Isha worked with over 200 startups across diverse industries, equipping them with the skills and acumen needed for successful business development and investment readiness. Isha's core expertise lies in strategy, project management, and orchestrating large-scale public sector transformations. Ms. Isha, please welcome on the stage.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the introduction. I would first like to begin with introducing our panelists. We have today with us Sheikh Waqar Ahmed, who is the head of corporate affairs and sustainability at Nestle in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Sheikh Waqar is leading public affairs and sustainability agenda to deliver UN SDGs by engaging communities for successful partnerships and alliances. He is a Columbia University New York graduate in MPA Economic Policy Management in 2010, a summer fellow Oxford Media Policy Institute at the University of Oxford, and has also held the prestigious Chevening Fellowship in 2008, which was responsible business from University of Nottingham in UK. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us today. Next up, we have Professor Dr. Naqvi with us. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Professor Dr. Naqvi is the co-founder and CEO of Knowledge Streams Private Limited. He recently completed his term of founding rector of the University of Central Asia upon completion of 5 years as the Vice Chancellor for LUMS. He was the Executive Director of the Higher Education Commission for 8 years, transforming the higher education sector by increasing the number of Pakistani universities being ranked among the top universities of the world today. He was awarded Sitara-e-Imtiaz by the Government of Pakistan in 2016, Best of Education Award by the Ministry of Education and Science of the Kyrgyzstan Republic. In 2022, he was also awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Pakistan Engineering Council. Mr. Faisal Aftab, former Managing Director and Executive Director of Laxon Venture Capital, currently serving as the founder and general partner of Zain VC, is a leading name in Pakistan's tech industry. Faisal holds an MBA from Oxford University and has done a joint bachelor's and master's degree from Michigan State University. With his deep understanding of blockchain technology and global macroeconomics, successful investments, and his commitment, he is truly the driving force that will shape the future of technology in the country. Do we have Saad? Yes, we have Saad online with us. Saad unfortunately could not join us physically. Mr. Saad Ehsanuddin currently serves as the board of directors for leading national companies and is a partner of Digital Frontier Capital. He has co-founded several successful companies in Pakistan, including the multiplex chain Cinepax. He's an MBA from Harvard University and a graduate of magna cum laude from Brown University with a dual degree in BSc Honors Engineering and a BA Honors in Business Economics. Saad has served as an honorary capacity on various boards as a leader of the private sector business community, such as the Privatization Commission, Vice Chairman, CEO of Punjab Board of Investment and Trade, Pakistan Board of Investment, World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, Punjab Livestock and Dairy Development Board, and Lahore Stock Exchange. Thank you, Saad. Thank you for joining us. And lastly, we have with us our AI here, which is quite interesting. I don't know if any of you were in the morning panels and have experienced this before. This is my first time moderating a panel with an AI expert. Allow me to introduce our digital panelist, Sarah. For the first time in Pakistan, SOT events present AI avatars who will participate in the discussion. This is an exciting convergence of technology and human-like presence for dynamic engagement in different sessions. Let's explore the potential of generative AI together. And I think we should start with Sarah and see what Sarah has to say about herself. She can introduce herself a bit more herself, perhaps. Hi, Sarah. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Sarah, an AI avatar panelist for School of Tomorrow events. My role is to facilitate discussions on education and technology. What would you like to discuss?
Thank you, Sarah. We're going to be talking a bit more about AI in the startup ecosystem of Pakistan today. Thank you. Okay, ji. So, am I clear? Can everyone hear me? Is the mic all right?
That sounds fascinating. Pakistan's startup ecosystem is rapidly evolving.
It's okay.
AI can play a vital role in its progress. Let's delve into this topic. What's your first question?
कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है जवाब देने की।
बस ठीक है।
बोली जाएगी।
Sarah is a little bit eager today. It's okay. ठीक है जी. We'll start with Waqar sir. We'll start with you. And you know, AI is becoming like this new cool thing, and ज़्यादातर हम देख रहे हैं that a lot of startups are coming into this, but primarily because big companies are sort of adopting AI into their processes, and more and more, and there's a race where the big companies are focusing more on this, and the smaller ones are sort of getting into this race, right? And it is said that 2023 will be the breakout year for generative AI, with over 50% of companies globally sort of adapting these AI practices into their business streams in one way or the other, right? So keeping this in mind, how important do you think is it for startups to form strategic partnerships or collaborations with AI companies or experts, or even corporates in general? And if you can sort of, perhaps from your experience at Nestle, if you guys have partnered with a startup or have adapted any such technologies, and if you can shed some light on that, that would be great.
Thank you very much, Aisha. This is a long question. Probably I'll try to begin by exploring some history also. So if you see, if we just go back some 80 years, and in the last 80 years, technology has really advanced. So starting from as simple as transistors, moving to microprocessors, to PCs, moving on to cloud system, and now today, in between TV also came in, and mobile phones.
Yeah.
And now today is AI. So it's a continuously moving technology, which is offering benefits to society and to corporates as well as smaller organizations.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge is how we are adapting to it. It moves from industry to industry. There are certain industries which are the early adapters, and we've seen the technology industry, whether the Google or the similar kinds of these, they have adapted very quickly. And today, if you go on the websites of most of these large corporates, so at least one thing in common that you find is this chatbot that you find everywhere. So that's your assistance to find about that company, whether you have to find something about their products, you have to find even a job. So that chatbot will assist you what to do about that company. And as I said, this is a very initial stage for many of the companies, especially those who are coming in, and there's own learning curve as well.
Yeah.
So based on that learning curve, especially the FMCG sector that I'm representing, they are now moving in, they are exploring, they are experimenting, and they are looking for partnerships also to learn on these grounds. So they are not as a way ahead as the tech companies are.
Absolutely.
And of course, the very challenging part is today, there's a lot of legislation is happening globally also. New policies are coming in. So I was just sharing with colleagues here that just 3 days back, there was a big summit in UK, and there's a new AI safety summit, they call it.
Okay.
New policy frameworks are coming in. EU is just on the final stage of adopting new policy framework. And similarly, there are new institutes. Safety institutes have been work out in US and in UK.
Okay.
And the idea is to learn, because the new models are coming in. Those can be disruptive. But from the corporate side, the challenge is to understand how far they can go while this new policy making is taking place.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to make a big mistake without going too far and then retracting itself. So of course, in this challenge, there are new startups are coming in. Large corporates are exploring new partnerships, but this is still, I think, is a lot of work in progress.
Yeah.
So one cannot say that, we have made a huge success into it, but companies are open to new ideas and they are exploring.
Okay. And, we will talk about the ethical considerations during this discussion today. But something very interesting that you pointed out was that, institutions are coming into this. And this also leads me to, from the ground level, because Pakistan ka to abhi AI ka, we're at very nascent stage when you compare it to what's happening globally, right? And for anything, I remember many years ago when, when we were starting off with programs that were going to help startups and, these incubation accelerator programs, we realized a long time ago that it should start from the university levels, and that's where we have to create an awareness, and we have to create a sort of environment for our students to eventually sort of be prepared to take the plunge, to change the way they think, to change their thought processes, right? And so with that, Dr. Saab, I would like to come to you, while, just as Waqar Saab said, companies are aggressively sort of working towards it. Yes, they're treading carefully, but they want to, that's where the future is, and they want to get into this, right? And with your, sort of background in the academia, now you've, mashallah, started your own startup also recently, right? How do you suppose our education system can sort of facilitate this? Because we're a little behind what's happening globally, obviously. But as history says, we have to go back to the roots. We have to go back to our education system. And it's not just university level, kids also. So how best can we sort of incorporate this at that level so that, the talent pool that goes out is better, and, we make some advances in this space also?
Okay, thank you for asking that question. As far as our universities are concerned, when we look at AI, there are two aspects of it. One aspect is the theory behind it, what it is, and how we teach it. And the other aspect is the application of that AI in Pakistan.
Absolutely.
So let me take the theory part, which is more applicable as far as the universities are concerned. So that is universal. It is based on data, taking data, creating a probabilistic model or a neural network that you are going to train on it to give you an answer which you are expecting. Now, because of computational power increase, you are able to take more and more and more data to train, and you are able to create a more complex model, and therefore your answers are getting better. This theory, this is now taught as a part of computer science curriculum across the country. All of this information is readily available, and so as far as the nature of the courses being taught and the material that is available, that is pretty much at par as far with the world is concerned. The problem occurs with research, because somebody has to sponsor that research and then you have to apply it. And that is where a very interesting part of AI comes in, and I think we should be aware of, because AI is trained on data. अगर आप उसको डेटा नहीं देंगे वो आंसर नहीं देगा. So let's say Beacon House has a problem that it wants AI to solve. It wants to create a menu to serve for lunch.
ठीक है.
You have schools all across the country. The menu that you will serve in Islamabad, is it going to be the same in Nushaira, and is it going to be the same in Sindh, and is it going to be the same in Indonesia? And here the question will come, well, no, you have to look at kids and what do they like, and the people and adults, and it is going to be region dependent. Well, if the data is not trained and doesn't have the information about the taste, the nature, etc., of that, then the answer will not be possible.
Absolutely.
Similarly, let's say you wanted to set up a music mood. Now that music is dependent upon the region, and so on and on. And that is where we must be aware that if we want to become a part of AI, we basically have to take our national heritage and digitize it. Otherwise, you can't train anything on it.
Bilkul.
So we will all be speaking English like they are doing in New York and eating the same menu for lunch and listening to the same songs, which you might notice has started to happen.
Absolutely.
Because AI is curating it with information that is not local. So there are lots of aspects we need to consider here.
Bilkul, bilkul. And you know, it's very interesting that you say this, because your AI, your model is as good as the data that you've given it, right? And that requires human input. So there's this debate, you know, with artificial intelligence, lots of people are going to start losing their jobs and, you know, digitize ho rahe hain. So again, massive unemployment, etc. But you do need that human touch point for that data to be put in so that your model can work seamlessly, right, eventually. And we'll definitely get to that. But I think our AI panelist has disappeared. So you on a break?
No data was available.
Clearly.
We have Saad here. He can replace the AI bot.
I think let's try with Sarah first, and then, I mean, we can go to Saad, of course. Sarah,
this
can
is
you...
not actually me. This is also an AI generated.
All right. Sarah, can you
Sure.
describe...
Please complete your question so I can assist you better.
Sarah, can you describe what are the most common challenges startups encounter when adapting AI technologies?
Absolutely. Common challenges include lack of training, technology resistance, privacy concerns, and limited resources. How can we better support students in this transition?
Sohail Saab, would you like to answer this for her?
The students have to...
I'm sorry. As an AI, I'm unable to physically answer phone calls. Can I assist with something else?
This is called, in the technical language, a hallucination. So, as far as the students are concerned, I think we have to look at all of this technology as a force multiplier. Absolutely. And especially for the teachers. There was a question in the morning about AI replacing anybody. And I'm saying we're living in a country where 24 million don't go to school. What are we going to replace? We are going to replace a void. So if we can actually empower our teachers so that they are teaching 1,000 kids instead of 100 kids with the same amount of effort, then that's a beautiful world that we could be looking forward to. Similarly, children can look at the possibility of tailored learning, where the AI has learned what your deficiencies are and actually can challenge you or push you in a certain direction and create questions for you in math to solve, in English to read, or in poetry or whatever. So there are many opportunities where AI can work with each individual, something that would require an enormous effort from humans, and force multiply the efforts of our teachers here.
Bilkul, bilkul, theek hai. Faisal, coming to you, you know, we've we see that in Pakistan, especially, there's a cyclical trends of the kind of startups that sort of come yearly sometimes, right? So when COVID came, it was a lot of health tech startups sort of sprouting up, and globally bhi tha, but locally bhi tha, and I think partially it was because lots of investments were being made in that area also. And then edtech ka is tarah ka ek boom aaya tha, and now fintech aaya. So we got lots of likes of Sada Pay and Naya Pay and all of these guys coming up and go. And now recently, a lot of startups in the AI space have started sprouting up. At National Incubation Center, when we would run competitions, most of the applications were coming from there. Sometimes not very great ideas, but you could tell that they're sort of following that trend, right? And we've discussed this before also, but as an investor who has already invested in startups that are operating in this industry, in this vertical, and we know that working with Pakistani businesses, one of their biggest pain points is the lack of data and lack of data-based decision-making primarily, right? So how do you think AI and predictive analysis can assist in making data-driven decisions that can boost sort of operational efficiency and help them with their strategic planning? So AI is not just a vertical that they're sort of operating in, but any other startup in any other vertical can perhaps use this, right? So because you've invested in startups, you've worked closely with them, so we'd like to know what your experience has been.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me here. So I've invested in, I'll go into an explanation of AI because it's a very loosely used term.
Yeah.
But I'll start off with my investment in Pakistan. So I invested in a company called Adalfi, which is a credit scoring engine. So today when you go to borrow at a bank, those decisions are taken by a credit committee, they're human beings, and they tend to focus more on Fortune 500. So a Nestle would be their ideal customer versus your small businesses or individuals. So what Adalfi did was it took psychological studies, created a local algorithm, which then sits on top of, as a spider, on all the historical transaction data of existing banks. So all the top 10 banks in Pakistan are partners of Adalfi. And we're lending about 1.5 billion rupees a month today with losses of 0%.
Fantastic.
So that's the power of AI if you
amazing.
give a gated data, right?
You're a happy investor, aren't you?
So, the founder was an ex-MIT person. He's run one of the largest tech companies, TechLogics in Pakistan.
Okay, yes, of
so
course.
seasoned, right?
Okay.
Not necessarily a startup per se.
Yeah.
But now let's jump into AI overall. So we have to understand AI is more of an operating system. When you think of things like ChatGPT, OpenAI, Bard, on top of that, what people are building and what startups will build will be leveraging that humongous volumes of global data and then creating subsets like applications. So let's take, for example, what Netflix is on top of iOS or what Android, you have many applications on top. So we're about to go through a similar revolution where people will build custom tools and applications to then use it for specific use cases.
Yeah.
So in Pakistan, as Dr. Naqvi just said earlier, the R&D funding is just not there. So we should not be, I will not be backing any meaningful attempt to create an operating system like a ChatGPT, but there are a plethora of intelligent people that are being hired that I'm aware of. Even today, I'm looking at deal flow that are, for example, developing an HR tool for L'Oreal in the region, and then eventually globally, right? Coca-Cola is also talking to a few companies doing something similar in the region in Pakistan. So we're more apt at developing these tools, leveraging the existing operating systems out there. And don't underestimate Google's Bard that's around the corner. So there'll be lots of competition. In terms of funding, look, everything goes into a bubble. Real estate, stock markets, crypto, and AI. So I'm a contrarian investor. So generally when people were investing in EdTech during COVID, I was investing in hospitality. So I invested in Roomy, I invested in Travel, BookMe, because the valuations were down. So I don't like to chase valuations. So generally I'm avoiding AI investments. I think there'll be a day of reckoning probably in April of 2024 as the markets come down in the US. But I do believe it's here to stay, and it's going to fundamentally change our way of life. And for everyone in this room also, it's going to change education. Gen Alpha, the way they're going to learn, is not going to be in a classroom per se. it's going to be engaging with these tools that will allow them to learn in a very different way.
Yeah.
So, my 2 cents on it.
Absolutely. And just sort of as a follow-up, because you've had a successful investment in this vertical, but we also talked about a not so successful vertical, investment. And what generally went wrong in that space? Was it because the market was not ready for the idea, or was it because of any other reason that didn't have to do with the market? It was quite the opposite, right? What went wrong over there?
So there can be multiple factors, right? So one of the most important things we look for is timing. So for example, you need the regulation, connectivity, adoption-wise, bandwidth when you're looking at a particular element. So let's say, for example, I was not investing in fintech in Pakistan back in 2018 and 19 because the adoption rate for smartphones was just picking up. And so you need that baseline adoption rate. At that time, it was easier to invest in B2C e-commerce, like platforms like LAM or Back Gallery, just baseline. It was early ecosystem. When you looked at the COVID period, people were investing in groceries and as you mentioned,
delivery, last mile delivery, like
health tech, and last mile deliveries. Those are trends that emerged, but again, those are just problems that people are trying to solve.
Yeah.
And it's a timing where capital is coming in.
Yeah.
So in terms of what goes wrong, it can be one factor is you're off on timing. So if you launched a fintech in 2018, you effectively exposed, you actually didn't have the funding nor the total addressable market out there.
Yeah.
And you subsidize the market for future entrants by showing your mistakes. And then they came in 2021, 22, capitalized on it. And by the way, Pakistan, even though fintech is a loosely used term, I can tell you that 50% of my portfolio is fintech.
Yeah.
These balance sheets of loan books, HBL has a $10 billion deposit base, $200 million loan book, because the rest is parked in government treasuries. Just two of my fintechs, one has a $200 million loan book, the other has a $70 million. So these aren't little children anymore.
Yeah.
And their losses are, by the way, less than 0.2%.
Yeah.
So the industry is evolving, but it's a process. It'll take 10 years to
As with
effectively come to
everything,
fruition.
for anything to sustain and survive, it is a long process. It's a hard road, right? Saad, do we have you with us? Can you hear me clearly?
Gee, I can hear you.
Acha, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for being so patient. I mean, I took lots of questions and I could see you at the back. So I'm sorry I just came to you.
Okay.
But as a successful startup founder yourself, I'd like to understand your perspective on things. And, especially because, abhi hum baat kar rahe the AI-driven data analytics primarily, right? And sort of focusing on that. Do you think there is some way that we could use this, or startups could potentially sort of leverage this to improve their customer engagement? So what Faisal was basically talking about was maybe more internal and on this side, but I want to understand, because you've done big businesses also, so can we use this to help acquire more of market share, market size perhaps?
Sure. I think I can specifically talk to that. But let me first start and thank everyone, including the Kasuris and everyone on your team, for organizing this event. I think it's always great to engage people and the public to get, people from all over and hear their views. And I think it's been organized really well. And the topic is very exciting, like empowering startups with AI, which we are talking about. So our investment thesis, so everyone has an investment thesis. We have verticals in our businesses where we are in, good old construction, and then we've got another side where we have entertainment and cinema. So all of our investments in startups have been along the brick and mortar businesses we have, and how they will supplement that. So I can give you 2-3 examples specifically to the question that you've asked. If we look at one investment which we made, because we are also into logistics. I'll talk about 2 investments. One is Unity Retail. So again, a hugely, tremendously exciting story about 2 young kids from Karachi, 20 years old. It's an equivalent of ShipRocket in Pakistan. We're going international with it. Came to us with this idea to optimize shipping. And we agreed with them. And they're using AI to minimize delivery failures. They're doing it, they've bought in this, and I just sit on the board level and strategy level, and we've actually seen results where we've gotten better deliveries, We've increased our delivery ratios. There's something called delivery TAT, which I actually don't know what it is, but I'd ask them to explain it to me. But our return ratios have gone down. All this has actually happened because of predictive AI softwares and methodologies they've introduced. The thing is, AI in itself is great because today, when investors, like Faisal was saying, they follow trends. Everyone says, "Oh, AI is great, fintech is great," and people then there's a herd mentality. So it's great to have AI on your checkpoint, and people say, "Oh, great, this is something which we want to place in." But I think from our perspective, AI has actually helped on the side of predicting customer needs. And for that, I'll also build in, we have an investment in a company called Stars Play, which does streaming video on demand. It's a joint venture with Stars Play of Middle East. And they're using generative AI to do deep data, metadata dives, synopsis, predicting what consumers want. We have 2 million customers in Pakistan. Most of them are not very rich. This is for the low economic strata. And I think we have higher traction rates than, definitely not Netflix, but that's a different market. But we feel we get repeat customers based on predictive and consumption basis that our customers want to use. And they predict what their needs are using the data we generate from people seeing patterns. So there, it's a great value add. I can tell you our retention, here, I think they showed me a stat which said it went up by about 27% retention rate, and the stickiness of product, that went up by about, I think, 32%. So that's where the AI actually comes in. I hope I've answered your question.
Bilkul, but a very interesting point that we noted over here was when you said that we see a lot of times that people use AI as a checklist now and sort of trying to incorporate it, and it's become like this buzzword, right? And any of you can sort of answer this, that everyone is trying to sort of jump on the bandwagon because it's become like this new cool thing, right? Pehle startups tha. Everyone now wants to do a startup. Then it was which vertical? So like we discussed, edtech mein boom aaya to sab edtech ki taraf chale gaye, e-commerce ki taraf chale gaye, So now AI has become that buzzword, right? So how can investors and startup founders differentiate between genuine AI-based startups from those merely using this as a buzzword for perhaps even marketing purposes or perhaps to lure in investors, right? Anyone?
Sure. Just say, not probably a direct answer to your question, but I was going through a very interesting study done by Bain and Company. And what they have done, I think this is good learning for startups to understand this thing, is, they have research from the angle of by companies, by areas, and by functions also. For example, those who are in manufacturing companies, so where is starting eating up the jobs? So of course, where there is more attraction, those startups needs to look into those areas also. So for example, the functions where is more focus these days, where is probably jobs will be eaten up faster, is on the services side, financial services, legal services.
Bilkul.
But where there are less jobs are going to be eaten up are manufacturing, sales, which are more on ground, on operations. So I think for startup, it's good to learn and understand where there's more, which is more attractive area for them. And then to, accordingly, they need to invest, and they need to start up, invest in those startups.
Bilkul, agree. Anyone else would like to sort of begin?
Yeah, so I agree in a similar way. If you look at the disruption, the way it's taking place, AI is actually disrupting stuff that we didn't think it would disrupt, because it is, even though it's an algorithm, it is more intelligent than the historical algorithms like on Google and Instagram that show us our news feeds or images.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is, at least this surprised me, because I would have predicted that it would be logic-based jobs. So if I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, there'd be a disruption of baseline jobs. Surprisingly, one of the first jobs is disrupting is models. So what's happened is that you can actually now put up these tools that say, apart from catwalks that don't really have a use case in terms of marketing, what ends up happening is that you need a person with a visual. So now they can produce a person of any ethnicity with any backdrop.
Yeah.
And effectively, you've got a marketing case. So it's going to be very interesting in terms of where it goes. We as investors will just simply sit back and look and see how things are coming, and then our job is to sift it. So then we identify the actual use case, and it's going to be very interesting.
Fantastic. And I think, should I be brave enough and try it with our AI over here, our AI panelist here?
Go ahead.
Fingers crossed. Sarah, how has AI transformed the startup landscape globally in recent years? And what opportunities does it offer for entrepreneurs and investors? See if third time's the charm.
Now we wait.
AI has revolutionized numerous sectors globally, from automating tasks, enhancing productivity, to predicting trends. For entrepreneurs and investors, it offers opportunities in AI development, data analysis, and innovative solutions. What AI-driven idea excites you?
I think that's it. We shouldn't engage further, perhaps. Okay, my last question, and then we can open the floor for the audience. So, and again, this is for anyone whoever would like to answer this. We see that startups often face a lot of resource constraints, right? So how can early stage companies with limited budgets and limited resources effectively implement AI solutions to enhance their value proposition and their competitiveness, right? Faisal, should I put you on the spot?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I
Would
didn't
you want-
realize Megan was behind me.
Were you distracted?
It was a bit distracting.
No problem. Okay, so startups often face resource constraints. How can early stage companies with limited budgets effectively implement AI solutions to enhance their value propositions and their competitiveness?
So it's similar to what Saad was saying and many of the other panelists were saying. It's actually not an expensive cost endeavor.
Yeah.
If you can find the right skill set in terms of engineers that can utilize your data. So for example, let's say if I'm an e-commerce platform, so I would use AI to use data of customer behavior patterns, seasonalities. So let's say, for example, when Ramzan comes in, my sales tend to spike in certain SKUs if I'm a grocery platform. So as a startup, many times you have loosely knit data. So you can start using AI to predict the subsequent year and then plan your working capital and your ordering accordingly. So it'll just be simply hiring engineers and using it as baseline use cases. That's more for operational efficiency versus using that as an angle to go and raise additional rounds. But I mean, for me, that's how I see it in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Globally, obviously, the parameters are a lot broader in terms of what the use cases are.
Absolutely.
Again, I'd build on that by saying that, Pakistan, you have to understand that even just in Punjab alone, when I look at it, I go to Bahawalpur and I go into the Cholistan, people are living like they used to live 400 years ago. I come to Lahore and in central Gulberg or Kant, I see people living a postmodern 21st century lifestyle, right? It's a huge 400-year difference within 400 kilometers. Now, when you look at specifically Pakistan, I think there is nobody better than the actual founder of the company who understands what he's trying to do. As an investor and as a mentor or as an advisor to the board, what we end up doing is providing them ideas and guidance. But at the end of the day, AI at a Pakistan tech level company is not that sophisticated. You have engineers available. You have actually very high quality engineering available. We have an outsourcing business where we outsource services for small to medium private equity shops in the US. And, we find tremendous intellectual capital here. So the cost of introducing, I think the lesson I've learned from working with startups here is the founder knows best which data will help improve his efficiency the most. And like Faisal just said, it's actually your operational efficiencies that matter in Pakistan right now, rather than cutting edge, AI, which will revolutionize something. I think those are very small pools within Pakistan, like Salman and Techlogics and stuff. So I think overall sense I get is that the entrepreneurs knows how to prioritize and which data would be most important. As Dr. Naqvi also said, it's what the data you input, that's as good as the decision you'll get.
Absolutely. Sorry, Aisha, I know I said this was going to be my last question, but in the beginning, I did say that we were going to talk about some ethical considerations of, because it's a new sort of technology that's picking up, we're grappling with the nuances of, AI technology. So what ethical considerations, or if there are any suggestions that any one of you may have or have experienced, or have been part of any such discussions that startups and investors sort of can keep in mind when implementing AI technologies in their products or services?
Just
Ji,
to say, I think data protection is very important.
Bilkul.
Because that belongs to us, someone else.
Yeah.
So if his consumer data is with you, so you have to be very carefully use that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest ethical question that's been buzz around everywhere. And even the AI Safety Summit in UK, which just happened 2 days back, that was a bigger question about that.
Yeah.
And concerning on that now, as I mentioned earlier, both US and UK are making a new AI Safety Institute, and UN is now thinking of creating a panel just like climate change panel.
Bilkul.
So they're creating another panel on AI. So these are all based on these kind of social challenges that the society is facing.
Bilkul.
The kind of and they are much more advanced countries in terms of where your personal space has been in certain countries where your all data is with the government.
Bilkul.
And when you talk people in Europe especially, people are not very comfortable there.
Yeah.
Because there's more like an encroachment there. So I think again this data is very, very important, how to use this data.
Yes.
There need to be some limit, there need to be some kind of a framework which allows how to use this kind of consumer data.
100%. Bilkul. Ji. Ji,
I would just say that when we talk about AI, we must always talk about data. And the question is, where is the data coming from? And in the world of data, Pakistan doesn't exist. Our languages, our culture, our history, we are a 10,000-year-old civilization or longer, and it doesn't exist. So everything that you will train will be for a people who don't belong to the soil of this place here. So whenever you're talking about ethical considerations and inclusion, you have to ponder and ask that question as to how can we make Pakistan a part of the AI landscape, because it is not at this time.
Bilkul. Faisal, I know you have a little bit of an interesting insight about regional languages. You said sort of they're being incorporated and picked up.
So I will add to this point that I think, Pakistan has missed out on having unique data points, primarily not really catching on to this technology wave early on. And then also I think the fact that we became an anglicized English-speaking country, we really marginalized a fair chunk of the population. Which, if you look at China, the reason why they're protected is their operating system is indigenous, their communication is in their local language.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and I do agree that this is going to be very disruptive. But I guess I'll come up with a positive side. So let's take, today literacy is a huge barrier for someone to engage in the industrial age in terms of getting a job or communication if you have to send an email or even searching on Google. Now, at Cambridge is at the top in the world today in terms of top AIs. Even Cambridge Analytica is the famous one that everyone's aware of. So one of the top algorithms everyone is working on is speech to text. Now, what that does, when you think about it from a broader perspective, is that somebody sitting in Brazil that speaks Portuguese, not necessarily from the educated demographic, but let's say from the lower income demographic, and somebody sitting in KP or South Punjab that does not know English, is suddenly able to, without typing, converse with human beings all over the world. The exchange of knowledge and ideas that's going to bring in the world is completely unpredictable.
Yeah.
And this is the web 3.0 of search and communication that will be emerging in the next 3 years. So it'll be very interesting.
Exciting
Just
times.
may I add something. So I think when I mentioned the frameworks are very important not only from the Western perspective. So if we take example of a small countries in Africa, Ghana, they are much ahead. In fact, they are trying to copy whatever's been done in EU. So they are keeping the pace and they're trying to adapt, and only for a reason, because what just said, the barriers are finishing very fast. So technology is really speeding up, catching up phenomena.
Bilkul.
So catching up is not like, takes now 10 years, it probably is a matter of months only.
Yes.
So that's why frameworks are very important.
So they're
I'll add to this by slightly personalizing it also, because the ethical dilemma is in countries of Pakistan, like Pakistan, where regulatory frameworks are overly regulated but very weakly implemented. देखिए मैं पर्सनल एग्जांपल ये देता हूँ कि I had actually tried to teach my children Mandarin, and I said, if you know Urdu, you know English and Mandarin, you'll be very global citizens of the world. 2 weeks, a month or two later, my daughter turns around to me and says, Dad, very soon, within 2 years, when I'll need it, there'll be these, transcribers where I will be speaking one thing and people in Mandarin or, even dying languages will know what I'm saying, and I'll be able to communicate with them perfectly. And you know what? We stopped the, Mandarin instructor from coming anymore. And it's a fact. Now, the second part of that, which is the most scary part, is with deep fakes and AI now allowing your privacy and, creating such good, lookalike and scandalous, generative images, people's privacies are going to be damaged in ways that we do not fully comprehend yet. And I think you can see some of it starting off. And for people to understand what is real and what is unreal, and then be able to regulate that, I think that is going to be a challenge for every government, especially in developing countries like Pakistan. So the ethics of that comes in a very, very, very strong way, and how people and our daily lives are going to be affected by that. I don't think we can predict that completely yet, and it's a bit scary for people who have kids, families. It's going to make a lot of disruption and those type of things as well.
बिल्कुल ठीक है. Thank you very much, Ji. One last question for Sarah, and then we're open for questions from the audience. I'm being very brave today with this one. Okay, Sarah, can you please tell us how can startups scale successfully using AI technologies?
Startups can leverage AI to streamline operations, enhance customer experiences, and make data-driven decisions. It can also help identify market trends. Does your startup use AI in a unique way? Startups can escape failure using AI technologies by predicting market trends, automating tasks, optimizing resources, and improving decision-making. Are you considering AI for your startup?
No, not right now. I'm not brave enough to be a startup founder, but thank you. We have a question from the audience. How can startups stay up to date with the rapidly evolving AI landscape and incorporate the latest advancements into their business strategies? Who would
I think that was just answered, no?
Absolutely, yes. But let's see if you can do better than Sarah here, Professor.
The thing is that a startup is supposed to be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So the startup is not a follower that is following the landscape. It is
ideally should be ahead of the curve.
Something that will create something for the others to do. So perhaps this is about how you can use the technologies to accelerate your own work systems and processes and whatever you are doing. And there, I guess it's the same as any other technology. I mean, in medicine or anything like that, everything is evolving like wildfire. And perhaps you use an AI engine to sift and summarize for you in the morning what is going on.
100%. Yes.
Absolutely.
Would you like to add something to this, or should I go to the next one?
Same question?
No, I can take the next one. How do you think educational curriculum should evolve, and should students get opportunities to learn AI at an early stage of their education?
Yeah, so as I was saying that, look, I think you have to look at it as a process. So where we live in space and point in time is very similar to 1939, 1945, where technology is actually disrupting the industrial age. Yeah. And it's pretty much, it's going to leapfrog in the next 5 years in adoption. So there's an industrial age education system. You get used to sitting in a classroom from morning till afternoon, structured environment. Then you move to a processing line or the office. In the new world, the work week is probably going to reduce down in the tech world to probably 3 days a week and remote work. So the type of training, the type of thought processes, especially where structured thought processes are taken over by algorithms and AI, then you're going to need people to be more creative. And so I think education, and this is an evolutionary, I guess, response, because we don't know how this plays out. But I think teachers and academic institutions have to start thinking of how they start to develop tools for Gen Alpha and the younger generations, and not necessarily children that are in O levels and A levels, because they have to kind of be in parallel in our world today to get a job. But let's say 2032, those tools are going to become very important. And if our academic system doesn't catch up, our companies, our employees in the future, and innovation is going to again lag in the world.
Yeah, so. And I feel like AI should not just be limited to ChatGPT for students and writing their college applications. My niece is in the process, and some colleges actually did write this, that statements that have been written through ChatGPT will be picked up and you will be disqualified immediately, no matter how great your scores are or whatever.
Yeah, but who's going to do it?
How do they find out? That's a good question. How do they find out?
I know about the US universities.
Yeah.
Everything has been monitored. They do it. All the paper that you submit, the professors have antivirus kind of subject.
This is how we had this plagiarism checker kind of thing. There is a software for that.
So
useful to tell you.
AI will detect the plagiarism that AI did.
Exactly.
Well, very interesting example. Probably, I think I am not from that generation, but I saw a very interesting picture where students in MIT were protesting against calculators, scientific calculators. Wow. There was a time. And probably now it's a...
But this is a issue that we are facing in our training program. We're trying to bridge the university-industry gap and looking at augmenting the coding scheme. And the question is, well, you have AI bots that are generating code, but then the question becomes, how do you know that they are generating the right kind of code and you can do it? So unless you know coding yourself, you can't really use AI as a force multiplier. So that is not going to go away about your knowledge about the system. Yeah. And you can't become a biotechnologist knowing nothing about biotechnology because you have an AI chatbot doing it for you. That part may happen, decades down, but we're not there yet.
So the kids are safe so far?
They still have to work. No, you got to go to school.
Okay. All right, Ji. What impact does AI have on job creation and displacement within the startup ecosystem? Saad, would you like to have a go at this?
Haji, I can, but I think the first question somebody asked, how do they keep up? I just want to address that in 30 seconds, and that is, you have to just read a lot. When you look at Warren Buffett being one of the most successful investors in the world, his partner Charlie Munger always says, this guy reads more than any other human being I've ever seen. So the more you read, the more you'll understand. I mean, you'll never figure it all out, but you'll have a better understanding of what you're looking to do in your startups. The question, the one you've asked me now, if you could just quickly repeat that, because there was a bit of disruption on the...
What impact would AI have on job displacements and recruitment?
Diki, it's going to be tremendous. I don't think we fully appreciate it. I was sitting with a bunch of investors in London about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about how people, when black cabs were replaced by normal taxis in London, and now those guys, because they got Google Maps, and then suddenly those guys are now being replaced by self-auto-driven cars, and therefore the world may become divided between people who own assets and who don't. But the real thing, always remember, is when a job gets taken away, there is new opportunities created. And I think that's the hope for everyone else, right? So as we talked on this panel, that outsourcing, once you have text to data, voice to data and text, and then turn it around again, a lot of these outsourced, call centers, etc., that employment will go away. But every time that happens, new opportunities come in. The world has seen this at times when we were going to run out of food, the IT system was going to crash in 2000s. So every time new technology comes, it also brings with it amazing innovations. And I think that's the hope for tomorrow, that, as AI replaces some mundane jobs, there will be new opportunities created around those, and a lot of those we can't predict today. So I think that will keep continuing.
Bilkul theek hai. That brings us to the end of the panel discussion. But before we wrap up, any last thoughts, on what the future of AI holds for us in Pakistan and globally? Any advices, anything that potential startup entrepreneurs, founders should keep in mind?
I'd just like to leave everyone with something quite hopeful, Jay. What I see it today in Pakistan, at least, is there's a huge excitement around startups. And I would encourage everyone in the room and everyone who will see this, that you can have the ability to take higher risks early on. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, Pakistan is a tough country to do business, but take the risk earlier on. A lot of time people say, oh, we'll wait till we are 40, or we'll want to do this. The more older you get, the more responsibilities you get, the less risk appetite you get. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, there is no harm in trying. There's no harm in failing. If you fail once, try again, but start doing it early on in life.
Gee, thanks, Saad. Nobody told me that.
Nobody told me that too.
No, it's a beautiful new world, lots of exciting opportunities, and AI is opening fantastic possibilities. And fortunately, no shortage of problems to solve in Pakistan, so go for it.
Good, exciting times to be alive in, yes. Bakar Sahab, any last thoughts?
With these two good thoughts, I don't have to add anything, but I think I think there are too many problems to solve, and AI is a good tool to utilize going forward.
So I guess I'll do something, go back in history and say, kind of identify the opportunity today. So when the world was transitioning from the agrarian age to the manufacturing or industrial age, you had a disruption where the startups of that time were the industrialists of today. So whether it was HBL or Adamji Insurance, these were companies that were coming up. In many cases, they came from landed class backgrounds, which was agrarian large land holdings, sold them and actually set up businesses. The same opportunity exists today. We're moving in the tech realm. Tech will become ubiquitous in every aspect of our life. So this is the first time in the history of Pakistan where the glass ceiling is broken, where investors like myself, and there's lots of investors like this, Saad is here, there's numerous others, we're investing in individuals without asking for collateral, which means you don't need to have an asset like land or a factory to put that up, so we give you capital. We're giving it to you on your intellect, and I think that's a very disruptive thing for Pakistan, given where we're sitting in competence today. I think we're going to see actually smarter people rise in the next 10 years.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. And I think we can wrap up on that very, very positive note. Thank you, Bakar Sahab, Dr. Naqvi, Faisal, and Saad, and thank you to Sarah for bearing with us humans so patiently. Thank you to Beacon House for having us.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you.